let's talk about the current state of the Meta Quest Store. A newsletter written by Simon Carless recently came out exploring the current state of the Meta Quest Store in 2023. If you've never heard of Simon Carless, well, they run a newsletter called the Game Discover Co. that does analysis and insights on how people find and buy games. You should definitely check them out, and I'll make sure to link them in the description below. Now, I'm not going to cover everything in the newsletter during this video, but I want to give some highlights of things that I found a little interesting. If you want to read the full newsletter, you can find that below as well. Starting off, it turns out that the Quest Store is still very, very small. We're talking only 275 paid games on the Quest Store alone. Compare that to Steam, which has like over 100,000. You might think that developers aren't making VR games with those kind of numbers, but if you look at different marketplaces like SideQuest, you'll find triple the number of games. So what's going on? Some explanations in the article point to the fact that Meta is very, very picky about what gets allowed on the Quest Store in the first place. So the good news is that the Quest Store is not oversaturated, and if you can get your game on there, well, you have a good chance of getting discovered. You just have to make it past Meta's bouncers. Simon's article also points out a way to roughly estimate a game's revenue on the Meta Store. If we take the number of reviews and multiply it by a factor and the price that the game is sold at, we can kind of start to see a picture of what their sales might be. So that factor can be anywhere from 110 for most games, but it can also drop down to about 75 for really niche games. Let's take a game like Compound, which is this really fun retro shooter that was released at the beginning of December 2022. Multiply the number of reviews by a factor of 110 and its price tag of $20, and we kind of get a rough guesstimate of 950,000, which, if we ignore, Meta taking 30% of that, is not bad for someone who was a solo developer on this project. If you haven't checked out Compound, you definitely should. I'll make sure to link it below. The newsletter also discusses what game tags have the highest median revenue associated with them. Here we can see that fighting, RPG, rhythm, horror, and shooters all occupy the top spots. This might suggest what genres work better for VR, or just what's in style right now. I guess all we need to do now is make a fighting horror RPG with some rhythm gameplay and we'll have a hit. Before I move on, I have a small ask for you, and that's just to let me know if you find this content interesting or helpful so I can know to make more of it. One of the most intriguing points in the newsletter points out that multiplayer games seem to be making a little more than single-player titles, with multiplayer games averaging around 5.2 million versus single-player titles averaging around 3.5 million. I don't think this means we all need to go out and make our games multiplayer, but I do think it shows that VR might shine better when players get to immerse themselves with other people, or more specifically, their friends. Also, this might be a sign that I need to make multiplayer tutorials sometime. There's plenty more in this newsletter that I think you should check out, but for now, that is going to be it for me. Likes and subs are the best way to support me right now, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!